Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to the next webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series. I'm joined today by Giles, Hawke, who is the Chief Executive of Cosmos and Avalon, by Kate Harris, who is the owner of Inspired Travel, and by Julia Bue-Said, who is the Chief Executive of the Advantage Travel Partnership. So thank you all for joining me. I brought you together ostensibly to talk about the Chancellor's winter economy plan. He announced the job support scheme last week. And I've noticed you all commenting on social media around it. I mean, maybe I come to you, Julia, because you were so moved. You recorded a video message directly to Rishi Sunak to explain how you felt, or what you thought about those measures that were brought in. So perhaps you can start us off and then we'll go around and see what you all think of those measures.
Yeah, hi Lucy, hi everyone. Yeah, I think, we've had 6 months of complete turmoil, 6 months where, personally I've been dealing with, lots of my members and trying to help them through these really difficult periods. And actually, I think we'd hit a 6-month milestone. So I think there was a lot of, I'd certainly sensed a real different sentiment and tone in the air all week long. And we got the announcement and it was just a further blow for our sector, for our industry that, we've been working, but we've got no trade coming in and, earnings have all been given back. There's been no earnings coming through agents, and operators for the past 18 months, really. And it was just a blow. And then when you worked it through, what that scheme does for all our businesses in our sector, it really gives them no lifeline at all. And it really, it felt like all hope was lost. That's how I felt last week. And speaking to a lot of my members, that's what happened last week. Hope of further support, understanding, appreciation from the government that it's a difficult period. And this will give you a bit of a lifeline. It went out the window. So yeah, really, really disappointed. I think for trades or industries where you have got a level of business coming through and you've got some income coming in, then the scheme is probably, the scheme is beneficial. There is benefit in the scheme, but for sectors where you're having to keep people on to work for no income, such as our sector, it just doesn't equate. It doesn't make any financial sense for us at all to keep people working around.
All right, thanks, Julia. Yeah, I mean, Giles, I'd be interested in your take. I mean, the initial reaction was, oh, okay. I think people initially thought there might be something there, and then actually the sentiment seemed to change, perhaps as Julia said, when people started to do the calculations. And I wonder what you think as well, because he's talking about it as being something to support viable jobs, which rather suggests then that he doesn't think the travel industry is viable jobs, which I know lots of people have felt very insulted by. We were asking for sector-specific support. That hasn't come. We have not been recognised, it would seem, as a sector that needs special measures. So, Giles, what was your view?
So, I mean, it's been called a job protection scheme. I've renamed it a job prevention scheme, and I can't stop myself saying that now because there is nothing it does really for the travel industry that's good. I mean, when you first look at it, you think, oh, good, there's a contribution extending some support for businesses. And then when you start working the numbers, it makes no sense whatsoever. And as Julia said, for travel businesses who've got no money coming in, so no trade, no people actually traveling. So even if you're taking forward bookings into maybe the back end of next year, it's only deposits and it's only a very small amount and the volume is nothing like it normally would be. So tour operators, travel agents, we're all working essentially for nothing at the moment. We're looking after our customers. We're looking after, as tour operators, we're looking after travel agents. We're making sure that customers get their holidays rebooked. We've got no money coming in. We're having to pay for staff, pay for premises, pay for everything else, pay refunds. And there's just no consideration being given in this scheme to how the travel industry operates, and to basically say that the travel industry in its entirety is unviable seems to me a real kick in the teeth for the work that people are doing. And I guess, if you think that that May to September period is when most travel businesses make their profit for the year. So most travel businesses haven't made any profit since over a year ago. because that's how travel works. We work on thin margins. Everyone works very hard to drive the business. And it's likely to be, you know, from what Boris Johnson's been saying, another 6 months of disruption of sort of COVID issues. So I think, you know, I feel really, really let down, disappointed, particularly as an industry. We've made quite a lot of noise and a lot of representations to Parliament, to individual MPs, and we seem to have been garnering a little bit of support and understanding. But when you look at what's been put in front of us, I don't think there's any understanding of our industry or any appreciation of our industry whatsoever. And then when you look at the actual numbers, when I was lying in bed at 6 o'clock on Saturday morning with my iPad working out the numbers, and you know, if you had 20 people on £20,000 and you put them onto this job prevention scheme at 33% wages for 6 months, it actually costs you £66,000 of paying them the work they're doing, another £44,000 to not work of the extra 22% you have to pay on top of the 33%. And you could have 11 full-time employees for the same cost as 20 employees on 33% hours, but you get way more hours from those full-time employees. So there just doesn't seem to be a thought-through process of how this scheme was developed and what it's there to deliver. And I just can't see how it can work in the travel industry.
Yeah, well, it's very stark when you put it in those terms. Let's come to you, Kate, because we had a little exchange, didn't we, at the end of last week, and you were trying to work it through whether you could keep people on, whether it would be a viable option for you to put your team or your gainer, I think it is, onto this scheme. So talk us through what it means for you.
Well, so when the D-Day, as we were thinking it was going to be, came, I'd set my alarm so that I would remember the announcement was going to happen, because I honestly thought we were going to be remembered. I really did. And I feel choked up actually just saying that, because I now feel such a prat. Because when he announced it, I looked at Gaynor and said, that's brilliant. I'm going to be able to keep you on after the furlough finishes the end of October. Now, bear in mind, or for those of you that don't know, Gaynor used to work 20 hours a week. She has been furloughed all the way down. She's gone from earning £13.50 an hour to now on £8.72. We've had to do that as an agreement between the two of us, because it was the only way that we could afford to pay her, and that she was able to come in to keep doing the admin and keep helping me out. So the girl is already on reduced hours and minimum wage. So when I heard that he was going to pay a third, because that's what it sounded like when they announced it, the government have this wonderful rhetoric, don't they? They can put a great spin on anything. We thought, brilliant, we're home and dry. And the next day, I got my bookkeeper to come in so we could work out what, in effect, we could do with Gaynor. And you'll excuse me referring to my notes, but what we can do is if she drops down or sticks on the 5 hours a week that she has been doing through the flexi furlough, because again, that was all we could afford to drag her in, because the paid furlough was crap. It didn't mean they could come in and work full time. We'd worked to scale out that we could afford. So for the 5 hours a week, which equates to 21 days in a month, she would cost us £508. Now, don't get me wrong, she's a bargain for £508, but we haven't got £508 coming in. You know, this month alone, we have booked 2 post-seasons breaks for immediate, so we'll have the money back from those. That's about £120. If I go back to the £10,000 that we were given as a handout, you know, the grant, we have used all of that from March to now, paying our rent. As a director who's paid by dividends, I've had no money until the flexi furlough came online. I've used all of the savings that I've got, keeping afloat. The resentment that it could cause, because every month while they did the furlough and Gaynor was coming in, she was earning more than a director. It's just bloody ludicrous. It was ludicrous before, and this new scheme that we're all supposed to be grateful for, that the guys are right. It doesn't involve us, it doesn't help us, it just writes us off.
Okay, I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, we'll come back to talk to you about a little bit more things that I know you're doing. But Julia, does that ring true with, you know, Kate's story? Is that happening within your consortium? Have you got members that are in similar desperate positions?
Absolutely, and I would have loved to. Sorry, Kate said that's the first time I've heard a story like that, but it's not, and it's absolutely symptomatic of exactly what Kate says, and to echo what kind of said already. You know, a industry that is absolutely bleeding, an industry that is not being listened to and not understood, and the support measures are out there. You know, for 6 months, I think, you know, when we had, you know, for the first 6 months, you know, we all kind of, you know, you all adjust accordingly, don't you? Say, well, I've got this grant coming in, I've applied for this loan, that's gonna pay these bills, and you can make that work. Most businesses, you know, viable businesses can make that work for 6 months. You know, as Giles said, you know, you're talking about an extended period of time where businesses have not had any income, not made any profit. I don't comprehend, I cannot comprehend what industry, what sector, what business can survive without that. And that's a frustration. So I have so much sympathy, I really do, because it's a message that is coming right the way through our members, and I know lots of not just agents, tour operators that I speak to as well. It's exactly the same. We're all in it together, and unfortunately, as a voice and as noise, that has not got us anywhere at all to date, unfortunately.
So Giles, I know you were saying actually it doesn't stack up at all for you, but in general terms, do you think there is enough in this that will stave off redundancies until January? And, you know, I mean, there's this thing, if you've got you get the £1,000 bonus, don't you, at the end? I mean, because obviously we've all been worried this is going to be a bit of a precipice and there could be these redundancies, and clearly the government feels they've done enough. But do you think you're saying no?
I think the cliff edge is still there at the end of October. I think, you know, unless there's something in the scheme I've missed, or they add something to it that doesn't currently exist, this scheme, I don't think, helps travel businesses one iota.
So you don't think people will be able to hang on now till January?
Well, I think it depends, Lucy. I think if the government can do something to say, okay, we'll work with, I don't know, the WTTC. I saw a story on your website this lunchtime saying they've come out with some ways to say we have to tackle this globally. We have to open up travel globally using certain guidelines. And if that looks realistic, I think some businesses or more businesses might say, look, we'll hang on because we can see an end in sight. We can see that travel is going to resume because governments are cooperating globally to allow people to travel. But in the absence of that, and I can't see that happening at the moment, I sincerely hope it does. In the absence of that, at the moment, this is an ever-extending window of when people might be able to holiday again. And so, you know, if you knew, right, in January, bookings are going to be normal, whatever normal looks like, I can start driving business, customers are going to have some reassurance about travel, they'll know that if they book somewhere, they can travel there, that they'll be testing at the airport, all these things that will actually help travel to happen. Then people might be able to say, right, you know, in Kate's case, you might say, well, I'll stick a few more of my savings in if I've got any left. Our business might say, look, we'll roll some more funding into this because we know we've got something coming. We know there's some certainty. But right now, it's nothing. It's a lack of certainty, and the fact this could go on for another 6 months or 8 months. And at what point will business owners, directors, investors, whoever it is that's funding any business, at what point are they going to say, enough is enough, I can't keep pumping more money into this? So the government actually, you could say this scheme doesn't work for travel, but here's some other things that you could do. If the government don't do the other things, you know, we're between Devon and Deep Blue Sea. We're getting no support financially to keep our businesses going, which are viable in normal circumstances, but nor are we getting any certainty around what's going to happen to enable travel in any medium to long term sort of window.
I want to ask another question, but I can tell Kate is desperate to jump in. Go on.
I'd be rubbish at poker, wouldn't I? You know, we had the bounce back loan.
Yeah.
50,000, brilliant. So I say to myself, I'm not going to use it. I'm going to put it in an interest account, which I did. interest account's no longer paying interest, and I've already had to use £10,000 of that bounce back loan. That isn't a grant, and that's what people don't understand. So already next year, yeah, we've got a drawer full of departures if they take off, but I already now owe bloody £10,000 before I start. And I was in a position, having had the business for so long, we had no debts, we had no business loans, our credit cards were paid off every month, we weren't behind on VAT, not a thing. And now all of a sudden, we owe 2,000 in corporation tax, we owe VAT that we've had to delay, and now we also have this 10,000 from the business.
And the fact that they've extended the repayment terms on the loans, is that a small comfort? Does that help at all?
It is, but it's still a loan, Lucy. So it still comes off our bottom line.
Yeah.
And I think I had thought to myself, if we can make it through without any debt, if we can mothball and we can somehow get through, then we know that we've got the profit sitting there waiting in commissions. I don't know whether the government realise that when people aren't travelling, but they might be booking for next year, that we're not earning. We don't get that till they travel. You guys know that. So I understand it's delaying, but it's delaying the inevitable. We've still got to pay the bugger back.
Well, a lot of people have said that it's like kicking the can down the road. So it's not solving the problem now, but it's actually still creating a problem for you further down the line. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I've had to explain to Gaynor what we've decided to do is that the £1,000 we get by keeping her on until January, keeping her on but not using this stupid affair that they've come up with. When we get our £1,000 back, it means Gaynor will have cost us £526.58p for November, December and January. And I can just about verify or can cope with that. Because in my head, when all of this started, August was you know how you give yourself a date and you think, well, we'll all be back up and running in August. Couldn't wait. August was going to be fantastic. June came and you knew it wasn't going to be August. So then I thought, actually, I think it'll be October. I don't know where I was basing this on, what information I was basing it on. But I then decided to look forward to March. And in my head, in March, we're going to be so busy that if Gaynor has found another job because I have laid her off, I've then got to struggle on with all of the new business that will be coming in, because everyone's going to want to go, I'm being assured, but I'm here on my own and not able to manage. So I'm then letting customers down on their quotes, so they're clearing off and booking elsewhere.
I know you're even considering getting a second job, aren't you, at the moment?
Yeah, so this is where I will get upset. So after 20 years of being self-employed, I've had to do a CV. I had no idea where you start. I couldn't even remember the dates that I was employed in other companies. School, you know, who's even heard of CSEs nowadays? When I last applied for a job, I was in my 30s, so what I'd got in front of me was current and I was young. I'm 53 now, and suddenly you're not down with the kids. I do a lot of stuff without even thinking about it. I would no more put on a CV that I can pick up and answer the phone and be polite to people, because that goes without saying, but I believe that's what you now do on CVs. So I've got a CV. I have been applying for jobs. I never want to do that. This has been my life.
Hey, can I just say, it's a really, really tough situation, but you're amazing. You are, the fact that you're talking the way you're talking, it shows strength of character. It's not gonna provide you a kind of a pot at the end of the rainbow at the minute, but it shows the strength you've got in character, that you're willing to keep fighting it, and if you need to, you'll do whatever it takes, and
do whatever it takes to keep my business, because I think what I have found hard is that when I started, and I know this isn't the Kate show, I'm really sorry, but when I started this business, My son was 6 years old. I couldn't have time off to go to school. I was the drive-by mother at 6 years old that opened the car door and shoved him out. I couldn't stand enjoying the Yummy Mummy set. I couldn't go to school performances because it was work. If the phone rang on a Sunday evening, I answered it because I wanted to set up a business. And I now wonder what I did all that for.
This is all through no fault of your own, and this is, I think, the galling thing for so many business owners and people employed in travel. This is nothing to do with anything people have done about running their business badly, not having a viable, profitable business. This is something completely external that's been thrown at people, and everyone's having to deal with it in different ways. And you know, Kate risks losing her business, losing a member of staff. Lots of Julia's members, probably similar. In the business I run, lots of tour operators. You know, we are responsible for employing a lot of people and their livelihoods. And the risk is that a lot of people across the travel sector are going to lose their livelihoods in travel. And for many people, all they've ever done is worked in travel, and they work there because they care about giving customers amazing holidays. They care about the travel industry. They're passionate and know huge amounts about it. And probably their skills are very transferable. But as Kate says, how do you communicate the level
where
of
do you
skill
start? Yeah.
in the travel industry?
Yeah, I did a Zoom interview. I mean, a Zoom interview for a job by two people who were younger than my 27-year-old son. Then I've applied for a job where they've sent me scenarios in shops. How would you deal with this? I've answered them and then thought, oh my God, I feel like I've answered these as a manager, but I'm applying for a job where I'm a little minion stacking shelves, and actually I should be referring half of what they've asked me to your team leader, to your manager. But I just totally lost what I was doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Go on, Kate. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
I think the other thing that I found difficult is I don't want to be the moaner, the woman who's always upset or moaning about how bad it is. And usually if I have a glass of wine, I'm not like that. But when people say, well, look on the bright side, you've got your health and you've not got COVID. Now, my son's grown up. I don't have brothers and sisters all around me. I have lovely friends, but I have a mortgage. I'm on my own. I'm single. I have a mortgage on my shop that I've now had to part rent out, and I have a mortgage at home. And actually, if the choice was having COVID or knowing I could keep a roof over my head, I'd pick COVID every day, because without my job and without this shop to come to, I'm sorry, I don't know what I do anymore, because this is what I've done forever.
Do it brilliantly, Kate, and you're showing such passion at the minute. And I think the underlying thing here that you've all touched on is the lack of understanding of our industry, just the basic thing around when you get paid and how the money comes in, when it goes out, etc. And you know, we've all been campaigning. There's been, you know, Julia, you've been part of the coalition for Save Future Travel, and yet today, not just did we have the Chancellor's announcement on Thursday, but today we've heard that, you know, APD is going to be increasing, and one of your demands was that we would have an APD holiday. So it's sort of adding insult to injury, isn't it? It's another one of our sort of calls on government it's just fallen on deaf ears.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to realise actually that, you know, the fact that we know that government do not understand our sector. But also, I have to be really honest, and I'm a bit like Kate. I wear my heart on my sleeve and don't always think before I engage. But you know, I do think when we're engaging with government, you know, we tend to try and ensure that we can, you know, go at it as a coalition. We work together because we want the loudest voices. We've never lobbied. Advantage has never lobbied. We've never campaigned. All of a sudden, it's kind of we find ourselves immersed in this world which we should know less about and rely on others to help lead the way. But I think I have to say, no matter who has the ears of government, who we thought had the ears of government, I'm not sure anyone does. I'm really not sure that there is anyone in government that really listens to the travel industry, that has it on a pedestal. I mean, I saw the WTCC story that you shared this morning, and actually, and they make a really good point that the travel industry represents so many different industries within the sector. We're not just travel, we're not just tourism, we're not just aviation, we're not just hospitality events, we're everything. And unfortunately, we get put into this pot of tourism, so nobody really kind of wants that portfolio, but we're actually lots of different sectors within. So therefore, who do we go to? Who represents us? How do we get what's the best chance of being heard? Which minister do we go to? And as you know, a big part of my portfolio is business travel. Well, that's completely decimated, business travel. So, and I think that's what I'm learning now. I'm learning that actually, you know, the ears of Parliament, the ears of government, actually nobody has the ears of government in times when times are tough. Nobody actually, it feels able to make that difference, and therefore we all have a responsibility, unfortunately, to make a lot of noise and to get the voice out. Passionate as Kate is, we need to see that, we need to hear that. It may not make a difference, but frankly, nothing is making a difference right now, so we've just got to keep at it and not give up. We cannot give up.
I can tell you our local MP knows how passionate I am. There isn't a week that I don't send him an email and tell him just what it is that I'm facing. And he's great because he does at least reply, which, you know, when I've been reading some of the other people, they've never even had a notification back from their local MPs. What are we paying these people for?
So if Julia says we shouldn't give up, Giles, what should be the next steps? Whether you're Kate struggling to save her business, Julia with responsibility for loads and loads, hundreds of businesses, and yourself, you know, as a tour operator with lots of employees all around the world, what should be our next steps?
I think we have to all keep doing all the things we're doing, you know, lobbying MPs, working as industries, whether and I completely agree with you, Julia, you know, we are lots of disparate parts of the industry sort of coming together as one, but I think we have to keep making that noise. And then unfortunately, I think, you know, at some point, I don't think we have to say we're on our own, but we have to recognise that government so far have chosen not to listen. They may continue to choose not to listen. And that being the case, we have to then say, well, what are we going to do with our individual businesses or collectively as businesses? And I think, you know, we have to start, so we either have to say, I give up, or we have to say, I'm going to have to find a way through this. So it might be joining other, you know, in Kate's, I don't know enough about Kate's business, it might be saying, I'm going to join up with other businesses, and between us, we're going to try and find a way just to get through. It might be as tour operators, we start to say, you know, what are we going to do to create new product, to find destinations that people can go to help travel agents have something to sell. So we're looking at creating UK tours specifically for UK customers so that there'll be something for people to sell. I think we're also all going to have to recognise that unless Rishi Sunak changes his scheme in the next week or two, we are going to have to make the tough decisions that none of us want to make around people. And none of us want to make that. You know, it is so difficult. I've been talking.
So can we make him reverse this decision, or to your point, add some stuff? He's not going to reverse it, is he? But could he? If you say we've got a week, how can we make him add more to the scheme that supports travel within a week when we've not been listened, as Julia said, for 6 months?
We're expecting more detail this week, though. I don't know if you've seen that. So Wednesday or Thursday, there's 2 different days I keep hearing. So what that looks like, whether that's something new or whether that's just finite detail, whether it's enough they give themselves a brief, you know, a bit of time to kind of adjust and see what's happening and then come back. I don't know, but I think this week we will hear more.
I think we all have to this week lobby our MPs again and explain why this new scheme doesn't work for our businesses. And I think if everyone in travel wrote, whether they be an employee, a business owner, a director, an investor, if everyone in travel wrote to their MPs, the noise that would make would be significant to explain in detail, in the way Kate's talked about it, in the way that Julie's talked about it, in the way I've talked about it. If we all write to our MPs and say, this is why this scheme doesn't work for us. This is why we need support in the travel sector specifically. And also, I think we should be reiterating the messages of Save Future Travel, Save Travel, whatever the different schemes are. We should be reiterating the messages and of the WTTC to say, this is what will save travel. And actually, the sooner you do these things, the less you will have to support this industry through financial means. And you know, the reality is, if travel companies have to lay lots of people off, those people will end up being a cost to the state anyway.
Yeah, and Giles, because we haven't really talked about it, you're talking about if they can't support us financially, they need to help us in other means, and I presumably you mean by testing to allow,
by saying, right, we'll now allow testing at the airport on arrival, we'll allow testing at the airport on departure, we'll open up the travel corridors, we won't be so broad brush around, the where COVID exists in different places. We'll recognise that it exists in the population at large, and we've now got to manage this and live with this. And probably working with other countries, working globally to come up with solutions, both solutions to vaccines and cures, but also solutions to enabling travel and people to continue to travel and live their lives. Now, I've read some reports that say it'll be 2025 before we're back to any real form of normality. That could be accelerated if governments cooperated and if governments try to do things jointly rather than doing it individually and, something world beating for the British. It's absolutely ridiculous. We should be working with other governments, with the European Union, with the United States, with Asian countries to say, how do we join up and make travel realistic and achievable again in the medium term? Because 1 in 10 people globally employed in the travel industry. That is massive, and everybody's livelihoods are at risk, which then puts a massive burden on the state in every country to look after those people whose livelihood might be destroyed.
I think just to add to that, Lucy, I think, it's, as an industry, we want to do our bit to aid economic recovery. We don't want handouts. Nobody wants handouts. We want a sustainable future. But as Giles said, my big concern is actually we don't have the means to be able to flick a switch and actually we can start operating, unlike other sectors. So hospitality, they've got their 10 p.m. curfew, social distancing, but they can operate, and they've had to scale down, but they can operate, they can trade. We have nothing like that whatsoever. So testing is so important, and that has to be top of the agenda. Actually, if that's we know from all the data we've seen, all the surveys we've run, quarantine, the lack of testing is the single biggest inhibitor of travel. That's what's stopping and giving consumers and corporates the confidence to travel. If we can just have a program in place, if we can just put the protocols in place, that in itself will enable us all to start restarting and help economic recovery. At the minute, we can't play our parts. A huge sector as we are, as Giles says, 1 in 3 employees in our sector. We can't aid economic recovery in our sector. We haven't got the means to do it because the government will not put the right protocols in place to help support our industry in that way.
It's absolutely right, but it's the deadlines, isn't it, that are so fast approaching. We're talking about end of October when Giles is saying people are going to have to make very difficult decisions on their people. And are we confident there's going to be a testing trial even in place in October?
Airports are saying they're ready. Airports are saying they're ready to do it. They want to do it. So what it needs is government to get their bloody arses in gear and get on with it, recognising that this is, we talk about UK PLC and the contribution to the economy. This inaction and this delay is actually really damaging UK GDP and the UK economy massively.
One of the first things that they need to do is, at least at the moment, some of us have been able to pick up a few bookings to Greece and to Turkey. That comes to an end very soon because the weather isn't good enough. Why is the Canaries still on this no-go list or this quarantine list? We absolutely, at travel agent level, need that lifting because then people will...
To save your winter.
Will book for the Canaries. I've had an inquiry today for Dubai. People want to travel to Dubai, but then the next thing is there are issues with them getting the private COVID testing done. Well, I just feel sometimes that the goalposts just keep being lifted. People find a way to get away. Oh, let's go to Dubai. Oh, well, actually, now we're struggling to get the COVID test done. Even privately. When it started, the private COVID tests were 130. I now believe anywhere up to £200 for a COVID test. And they cover themselves by saying that they can't guarantee that they will get them back ready for you to go. But of course, they have to be no longer than 72 hours old to count. We need the Canaries back and we need it quick. I can't believe that hasn't happened. We lobbied for that, for rather than the blanket ban, lobbied for individual countries and islands to be brought back. That hasn't happened. I don't know. I don't know what we're supposed to do. And then you get a customer who has messaged me all weekend. He doesn't go till April. His balance isn't due till January. Had threatened me that if I didn't tell him the rules on what he could or couldn't do for a holiday in April, he would contact a local agent and tell them that I wouldn't speak to him and wouldn't tell him, and that he would call a tour operator. For April, you know, when you try and explain to them, we don't know what's going on in November, let alone bloody April.
I know. Well, I mean, we've had a lot of amazing people on these webcasts, but this is arguably one of the most passionate ones. I can see your pain, all of you, and perhaps we could send this webcast to, you know, I can make it available. People can send it to their local MPs, as well as the letter that Giles is suggesting everybody writes. Perhaps if they actually see, you know, what you're going through, we'll do all we can to help. But I think we're probably at the end of our time now, but I do really thank you all for coming on and for your honesty and your suggestions, and particularly you, Kate, because I didn't want to upset you, but I think people will really, really value seeing, you know, and hearing just how real it is for you. So to Giles from Cosmos and Avalon, to Kate from Inspired Travel, and to Julia from Advantage Travel Partnership, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy.